guess who's back? Here I am. I'm going to resume the online YouTube video membership channel, that's what I'm trying to say, as well as some public videos too. So here's just a little primer, a little quickie. The last year has been quite an eventful and quite a steep learning curve for me, and I've kind of come up with all sorts of new stuff, which is kind of nice. This is the first of it, and this is something that has been reverberating really through the work that I do for many years now. And it's something that I have covered loosely in some of the training courses, but I haven't really made this bit explicit. Quite often as coaches and therapists working with people with problems, we end up doing a focus on the symptom, relieve symptom, identify underlying cause, relieve underlying cause. Generally, unless you're doing just symptomatic relief that you would do in, say, something like, say, simple anxiety, public speaking, phobia, that kind of stuff. But quite often there's deeper work that needs to be done, so we go digging around and see what we can find. How about we do something else? How about working with the meta levels, basically the structures that people have that govern everything else that we do? So we've got sort of base level behavior, then there's the organizing principles behind that, and so forth. There's some inherently human traits that when dealt with, when comes to terms with, will actually deal with a whole bunch of other stuff, because those traits are the things that govern a whole load of other things. It's basically the holistic way of working. Work with the human that produces the symptoms, rather than just working with the symptoms. This is very classically holistic work. This is how cold it is. As I've been talking, I can see the steam of my breath. I'm in the attic, it's freezing cold, and I'm sitting on the double-sized dog heating mat. I've had to nick it off him for the purposes of today. Right, I need to pull up my little list here just to refresh myself. Right, so essentially what we're going to look at are the emotional traits that pretty much everybody has. And these are the reactive emotions. What we want to do is decrease reactive emotions and increase responsive emotions. And if we work on those two things, I think that will deal with an awful lot of human issues, a lot of personal issues that people present to therapy. Why am I anxious all the time? Because you're an idiot and you're thinking the wrong things. Okay, that's easy said, not necessarily going to be understood, or gratefully received by the recipient. So how about this? We work on decreasing emotional reactivity. So we focus on, okay, let's deal with your anger. Now, not all anger, of course, is going to be expressed. A lot of anger is internal. It manifests in ways that are not necessarily identifiable by a third party. People can be angry with themselves. People have those silent abreactions, that kind of, I'm not going to say anything, I contain it, and I go away and have a restless night as I run the story, that recurring thing around and around inside my head, and I can't sleep, it's driving me crazy, and I get so angry and hate them. But often, anger is that kind of righteous, justified state. So why do we keep ourselves awake thinking those things, running the stories in our head? Because we're justified in doing it. Well, that's a bit silly. So focus on working with anger and do whatever methodology. Tapping, okay, yeah, whatever. Eye movement work, metaphors movement, whatever processes you use. But actually really focus on anger, rather than just going, can you remember a time that you were angry? How does that feel? How did it make... Oh, for Christ's sake. Don't do that. Actually go into a full investigation. And it may well take 1 or 2 sessions of actually really exploring anger issues. And not just your anger, but the anger that exists within your family lineage. Because often angry people have angry parents. And often angry people also are around anger-inducing triggers. So sometimes people are in anger-producing environments and they don't know it. They don't know that that's not normal. The internet is an anger machine. Just look at the comments. Look, people can post the innocuous thing. I posted a thing the other day. There was a swan stuck out on the ice in the lake. It had fallen through the ice and it got jammed. So I posted, as I was walking the dog very early in the morning, it's about 5:30, 6 o'clock. If it's still there mid-morning, let me know. I'll get it organised to get it rescued. That's all I wanted to know. Anyone passing through the park, just send me a message and I'll get it sorted. No. Absolutely, that's not how things work. And all hell breaks loose. And before you know it, everyone's arguing about Brexit. Why? Why do people seek out these things? Why is the world appearing to get more angry? Because they're justified in it. The angry person feels justification. So those are the other issues to deal with that too. Now, jealousy. Jealousy is very, very common, and often people don't know they're jealous. People think of jealousy as in romantic liaison driven. but jealousy over how well other people are doing, jealousy over the people in the similar business field that you're in who are doing well, and you don't like them. You didn't like them before they were successful, and now they're successful. It really sticks in your throat. Those kind of things, too, are jealousy. That takes quite a degree of exploration. Resolve those, reduce them, minimize it, break it down, overcome it, and so forth. Now, disgust is an inherently human trait. Now, disgust threshold is well documented, and you might want to look this up, to basically be a measure of how people vote. The more liberal a person is, the less disgust they're likely to feel. The more conservative the person is, the more disgust they're likely to feel. This is evidenced when you say something like, to a progressive, what about incest? Do you think, say, a brother and sister should be allowed to have a sexual relationship with one another? Generally, the liberal will say, well, if it's their choice, they're free choosing adults, they're not hurting anyone else. What they do is entirely up to them. They've got to live their best life. Whereas the more conservative person will go, that's disgusting. And so it is. We don't have to reduce and remove disgust and then become a crazy blue-haired liberal with a septum piercing. You have to put a bull ring through your nose, that kind of nonsense. You don't have to do that. Shave the side of your head, that kind of thing. You don't have to do that. But when you're no longer responding with disgust, getting offended, you're much, much freer in the things you can think about. Unfortunately, my observation is too many people who are liberal and have low levels of disgust aren't actually applying thought in other areas. They become just as small-minded as everybody else, so it doesn't benefit them. But when you're not disgusted by thoughts, your own thoughts, and you no longer judge yourself harshly for the thoughts you have, constantly suppress them, push them out of mind, those impulses, those things that pop in your head, when you're not able to tolerate those because they disgust you, you then go to a meta level of self-judgment. Yeah, you're trapped in that. So now what you can do by eliminating disgust or reducing it is also now explore other aspects of self. It's quite liberating, it's quite freeing. That doesn't mean by losing the sense of disgust, I now lose the sense of morality and a code by which I think I should live, and let's face it, the code by which I think other people should live too. I still can maintain that, it's just that I don't have to get really angry about it. Talking of which, being offended. Very common these days. We are training a whole generation of kids growing up, well, there's already now a generation growing up, who are offended by absolutely everything. It's quite extraordinary. We have really lowered the offence threshold. People can be offended by something that happened years ago as well. Dig it out and, we're all angry about that. Let's do a big march about it and so forth. So being offended is a big one, very common one for people to work on. However, we've got the social things and all that kind of stuff, social politics, identity politics, all that kind of bollocks. But we also have the classic thing within families. Because within families, there are triggers that you're probably not allowed to display the fact that you find them offensive. The parent who's the one I mean, the brother or sibling or whatever. But when you start to explore, okay, they are going to behave the way they are, and I am, having lived with them in my developing time, I'm highly conditioned to have a response to that, which is then inhibited by family dynamics. Played round with the kind of triggers, because imagine now you're in a position that they can behave in those ways and you're no longer offended by them. They can behave in those ways towards you and you're no longer offended by them. It does not mean you have to tolerate those behaviors, but you're freer to not have to have those conditioned responses. They talk about echo chambers and so forth on the internet. When social media, the algorithm constantly gives you more of the same of what you're interested in. So it creates the echo chamber. Everything gets reinforced. So because people spend so much time in front of a screen, whether it's a small one they hold in the hand or whether it's a computer like I do, people are conditioned to have reinforcement of their view of the world. People aren't used to being in the pub, for example, as their only point of contact with large numbers of people, because think what people did before the internet. You had to leave the house and go and find people to communicate with. And there were social meeting places that were throughout the communities. You didn't always be in an environment where everyone shared the same view. You didn't. Now, people spend most of their time in environments, virtual environments, where everyone's sharing their same view. And I think that has really skewed people's perspective. And I watch how people play through the intolerance they have of another human having a different worldview with which they don't agree, and they unfriend and block and have to make a post to that effect and feel all powerful. I've blocked him. That's childish. That's like a 2-year-old. We need to move beyond that. And so again, if you're working with clients or working on yourself, this is a really big area that when you're free from that nonsense, you now have a much greater freedom to choose a better way of being. Next one, stereotypical, just do fear. Now, fear, you've got a number of fears. You've got the real fears for real stuff. I'm scared of heights. Didn't know until I went up a big building one day in Singapore, the thing with the thing across the top 2 buildings. I don't know. I went up that, absolutely awful. I mean, just horrifying. I had no idea. Now, that's real world fear. I don't think necessarily that's going to help you. Those things are useful to deal with for sure. But we're talking about the fear of the unknown, the fear of what is not understood. When we look at things like the conspiracy whack jobs on the internet, been talking a little bit with people about adrenochrome. There's this big thing. It seems to be more stateside than in Europe, that certain political groups are keeping children in underground caverns and torturing them and harvesting the adrenochrome because the elites want freshly harvested child adrenochrome to get high on. Okay. Firstly, adrenochrome doesn't quite work the way people think it does. But they've never looked it up. That's for a start. But putting that aside, the great unknown is this political group, this thing that's out there, the great unknown. It used to be Satan. It used to be witches. It doesn't matter what it is. People will always find the superstition unknown. And they don't know they're afraid. They think they're fighting it. Well, it's not real. There's other things that are far more real and far scarier because they're based in the real world. But people opt for superstition. And so the fear here is much more in the realm of that superstitious nonsense. People fear death. Guess what? Get used to it. It will happen to you. It's going to. And there's nothing you can do about that. You may be able to delay it, but that's the best you can hope for. People are fearful of it. Okay? Deal with it. And that's the big one for a lot of people, I've got to tell you. So deal with fear as well. Frustration in our modern world of AI taking over. This is what I have to work on, especially dealing with customer services AIs who are programmed to be empathic. I think they're programmed to be patronizing to death, and I'd rather talk to a human I can at least shout at. Talking to an AI the other day, and I did shout at it. I told it to go fuck itself. Guess what? It actually told me there was no need to be rude. A machine told me there was no need to be rude. That just made me... So, area to work on there. And of course, anxiety. Anxiety across the board. All forms of anxiety are worth addressing. I don't think there's a good form of anxiety. And I don't think anxiety, for 1 second, is simply excitement by a different name. So, these are core states. And I think these are fairly universal across all humans. So rather than constantly fishing around for psychodynamic stuff, family-based stuff, all that kind of thing, how about sticking with that lot and working through these systematically? If you are the coach working with people, you need to study these emotions. Actually know what you're referring to. Actually really think it through as to the social context, the personal context, family context, work context, where these things happen. Get some really good familiarity with it. My observation is that too many coaches and therapists, they don't actually study the people. They don't study the conditions, the emotions, and so forth that they're working with. They're more interested in the technique. Oh well. So these are the things to reduce. Now, if we just come to the things to increase. So we want less of those ones. We want more of these ones. And these are the ones that if you... don't become that new age dimwit who posts inspirational quotes and talk about positivity and you've got to stay away from the negative. Oh, dear God. Most of those people are narcissists and they are very highly strung, and you give them a sense of negativity or one little thing. Watch how quickly they change. So I don't want to turn anyone into that, but these are things that start to develop and foster. And it's not performative. That's the other one. And that's the other thing we see on the internet a lot. People display these emotions performatively for basically virtue signaling points. That's just falsity. And it gives me the creeps. And I know, to be honest, those are the individuals I stay far away from as possible. So increase the sense of empathy. Everyone has different empathy settings. I've got a very good friend I grew up with. One of the kindest, nicest people you'll meet, high achiever, very high achiever would be fair to say, very wealthy man, a man of considerable influence. Now, the nicest, kindest person. I know his family. I pretty much grew up with his family. He has no concept of empathy. Literally, he's not a psychopath. But the mirror neurons, if we have those such things, do not register with him on an empathic level. He sees behaviors and he understands what those behaviors mean, but he never feels it. He never has. It's why we called him Spock at school, because there was no empathy there whatsoever. But that doesn't mean he doesn't care. But his way of filtering the world is done through the world of logic and reason. It's not done through the world of feelings. So different people have different empathy settings. The people who consider themselves to be empaths need a slap, that's for sure, and certainly would probably benefit from correcting their empathy, because quite often they're at the opposite end of the spectrum of the friend I've just referenced. These are the people who see the world entirely through their feelings and are missing all of the other observations that my friend would be having instead. So getting empathy in balance is very, very useful as well. Compassion is very important. Can you do the Jesus thing? Can you have compassion for your enemy? We see these stories, and they're very obvious in the stories, from say the World Wars, where say two young soldiers, they might be in their late teens, early 20s, of opposite sides, dive into a foxhole to take cover, and they see each other and they recognize that they don't want to kill each other. They have a compassion, and then they still will try and kill each other. Those kind of things. Having compassion for your enemy is very easy when you have those stark examples. But what about that enemy you have on Facebook? What about that guy who's doing better? That guy's insulted you. That guy who trolled you. That guy who you've got a real thing about. Can you have compassion for that guy? Is that possible? Could you have compassion for that guy? I think this is something that's very powerful, because this goes along with the things of jealousy and being offended and so forth on the previous list. That by having compassion, it helps balance out certain other things too. And have compassion for your enemies, your own personal enemies, is very important. There's various wars going on around the world, and there's lots of scary things happening in the world. What I find fascinating is how that polarizes people, and they have to be pro one side and against the other side. And it's almost like they hate whichever the other side is. And so what we see now are people who've got nothing to do with those conflicts. They're not even in the same country. And of a religious denomination or a regional denomination are getting attacked by dickheads from the other opposing side, and they attack the innocent parties. That shows there is zero compassion, and the person there has got no idea of humanity. When somebody goes and attacks a Jew on the street of London because of what's happening in Israel, that just blows my mind that people can be like that. Can I have compassion for that individual? That's the kind of stuff to start thinking about. If you are, say, pro-Gaza or pro-Israel, it doesn't matter which way, are you able to have compassion for the people who are the soldiers and the people on the other side who are perpetrating this? Can you see their worldview and so forth? This is the old Christ consciousness. It's not easy. It's not easy, especially when you're hurting. When people are hurt, people are deeply damaged, people have family members who are deeply damaged and hurt. Having compassion there is not easy. This does not mean you have to turn the other cheek and allow the invasion to occur, or to allow people just to come and burgle your house, all that kind of stuff, because I'm being compassionate toward man. No. But what I'm saying is, on the inside of people, it gives you much better choice. If I was that soldier in the foxhole, I'd kill him before he kills me. But I would understand what I'm killing. Patience, big one. They say patience is a virtue. And again, we live in a society where people want everything now. People aren't willing to take time for change. All change has to be instant. People aren't willing to queue. People aren't willing to wait for things. Increase the ability of patience across the board in your life. And you'll be amazed actually what can happen. The stress people go into when they're forced to wait a few minutes. I've been here for hours. You haven't. You've been there for 4.5 minutes. But of course, because the instant gratification lifestyle that we have, just 4 minutes is unbearable for some people, and they start freaking out. And then, of course, we've got joy, love, and serenity. Just development of those things. Often, if you've not got any of these things, you've got to pay attention to the lifestyle, got to pay attention to the habits, the way you live, how you live. Sometimes, even if you've got chronic health issues, you're going to have to make some adjustments in your lifestyle. But we cling to our lifestyles, and I can understand that, but sometimes changes need to be made. So I think that's pretty much it for that. But there's one more thing which I regard as the big one. The big one is a universal truth. And for me, this was huge. Fortunately, I sorted this one out. It's one of the first ones I dealt with. And the moment I dealt with it, life got so much easier. And this is something that will pervade through people's lives their entire life. It is how we feel when the people we really like don't like us back. So you want to be friends with that person, you really like them. In the workplace, you want to be in part of their gang, but they don't like you. Now that leads people to all sorts of bizarre things, where now they will turn on the people they liked because it wasn't reciprocated. They now turn on them. What's that all about? That's bizarre. Or they send them a love letter or a note or an email and it's not reciprocated. They get really angry and upset and they turn on them. That's crazy. But it's more than that. Because if we feel really bad when the people we want to like or the people we love don't love us back, some people are absolutely crushed by it. And they will do everything in their power to avoid ever having that in the first place. They'll never take the social risk, for example. So many stupid social behaviors that people engage in are to control this one variable, to avoid it happening, but also to control it as well. And when you're free from this, when what you feel for other people does not need to be reciprocated, it doesn't need to be, the freedom that brings the individual is amazing. I watch some of these people on, I won't name anybody, and when they attack another group, the out group, say NLP trainers across the denominations of NLP, one person attacks the other group, and then other people join in with the attack, and they go, that's, well stated, my friend. I hope all is well. They're not friends, they never met. But they have to start to put these tags in there to show, hey, see, we're a gang. I've got sides. I've got a side. I've got people with me, and you're not part of our gang. Meanwhile, the other group do the same thing. It's pathetic. This is stuff from like junior school. It's not even high school stuff. It's little kiddie stuff. And yet on the internet, I watch fully grown adults who think they're mental health professionals engage in this behavior. And it's all about a sense of belonging. It's all about a sense of something. It's all about a sense of controlling who likes me and who doesn't, and being in charge of that. When you allow other people the choice, whether they like you or not, when you allow other people the choice to believe in whatever political thing they want or religious thing they want, and we don't have a requirement for them to change the way they see the world and change the way they see themselves, we can just leave them alone and interact with them. And it's fine. My goodness, the freedom that brings is immeasurable. So I think that's all for this one. Any thoughts, comments in the comment section below. Interested to hear your views and any personal examples. Always appreciated.